In the heart of a bustling metropolis, Elijah Carter, the visionary CEO of Innovatech, stood on the precipice of success, yet a dark cloud of discontent loomed over his empire. As he delved into alarming employee satisfaction reports, he uncovered a toxic culture that threatened to unravel everything he had built. Little did he know, the path to redemption would lead him undercover, forcing him to confront not only the betrayal within his company, but also the haunting secrets that lay hidden in the shadows of his own leadership. The morning sun cast long shadows across Elijah Carter's corner office on the 47th floor of Innovatech's headquarters. As CEO of one of the fastest-growing tech companies in the country, he should have been feeling on top of the world. Instead, a nagging sense of unease had been growing in his gut for weeks. Elijah stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows, absently swirling his now-cold coffee while studying the quarterly employee satisfaction report on his tablet. The numbers painted a troubling picture, a 30% drop in employee satisfaction over the past 6 months, particularly in their downtown branch office. What bothered him most weren't just the statistics, but the comments that accompanied them. Toxic workplace culture. Favoritism runs rampant. Merit means nothing if you're not in the right circle. These words felt like personal attacks. Hadn't he built Innovatech from the ground up with a vision of creating a workplace where innovation and merit would always triumph over office politics? Where had things gone so wrong? A knock at his door interrupted his thoughts. "Come in," he called out, turning to face his HR director, Patricia Wells. "Elijah, we need to talk about these numbers," Patricia said, her usually cheerful demeanor replaced by concern. "The downtown office situation is getting worse. We've had 3 resignations this week alone, all citing hostile work environment." Elijah sank into his leather chair, running a hand through his salt and pepper hair. "I've been reading the reports. What's your take on this, Patricia? You've always had your finger on the pulse of our company culture." Patricia hesitated before speaking. "Honestly, something's rotten in that office. The complaints are consistent favoritism, dismissal of legitimate concerns, an increasing divide between management and staff. But whenever we send someone to investigate, everything appears perfect on the surface." "Like they're putting on a show," Elijah muttered, more to himself than to Patricia. "Exactly. We're not getting the real picture." Elijah stood up abruptly, pacing the room. His mind wandered to his early days, when Innovatech was just a startup operating out of a garage. He'd known every employee by name then, knew their stories, their struggles, their dreams. Now, with over 5,000 employees across multiple offices, that personal touch had been lost. What if? He began, an idea forming in his mind. What if we could see what's really happening on the ground level? Not as executives, but as regular employees? Patricia's eyes widened as she caught his drift. "Elijah, are you suggesting what I think you are?" He nodded, a plan already taking shape. "I'm going undercover. We'll create a new identity. Make me a temporary receptionist or something similar. Low enough on the corporate ladder to see the real dynamics, but positioned where I can observe everything." That's crazy," Patricia sputtered. "You're the CEO. You can't just disappear for weeks. What about the board? The shareholders?" "We'll figure it out," Elijah said firmly. "Tell them I'm taking a sabbatical to work on our new strategic direction. It's not entirely untrue." He paused, looking at the city skyline through his window. "I built this company on the promise of innovation and fairness. If we're failing our people, I need to know why and how to fix it." Over the next week, Elijah and Patricia meticulously planned his undercover operation. They created a complete backstory for Eric Collins, a temporary receptionist with a decent resume but nothing too remarkable. They arranged for a subtle makeover, contact lenses to replace his distinctive glasses, hair dyed a different shade, and a complete wardrobe change. The night before his first day undercover, Elijah stood in front of his bathroom mirror, barely recognizing himself. Gone was the polished CEO in tailored suits. Instead, he saw a middle-aged man in business casual attire, looking like thousands of other office workers in the city. His phone buzzed with a text from Patricia. "Everything's set for tomorrow. Are you sure about this?" Elijah typed back a simple yes before setting his phone down. He thought about the employees whose trust he'd somehow lost, about the culture he'd worked so hard to build seemingly crumbling beneath the surface. Something was very wrong at Innovatech, and he was determined to find out what. As he prepared for bed, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was about to uncover more than just office politics. There was something deeper at play, something that couldn't be seen from the 47th floor. Tomorrow, Eric Collins would begin his first day as a receptionist at Innovatech's downtown office, and Elijah Carter would start his journey to rediscover the company he thought he knew so well. Little did he know, this decision would unravel a web of deception and manipulation that went far beyond his worst fears, leading him down a path that would challenge everything he thought he knew about leadership, trust, and the true meaning of corporate culture. The morning of his first day as Eric Collins dawned bright and clear, but Elijah felt a storm brewing inside him. He arrived at the downtown office early, the familiar buzz of the city around him contrasting sharply with the anxiety that gripped his stomach. As he stepped into the sleek, modern lobby of Innovatech, he took a deep breath, reminding himself of his mission. The receptionist's desk was situated near the entrance, a hub of activity where employees flowed in and out, each absorbed in their own world. Elijah approached the desk, where a young woman with bright red hair and a warm smile greeted him. "Hi there. You must be the new receptionist." "I'm Rachel," she said, extending her hand. "Eric Collins," he replied, shaking her hand firmly. "Nice to meet you." Rachel's smile widened. "Welcome to the team. It can get a bit hectic around here, but we all help each other out. If you need anything, just ask." Elijah felt a wave of relief wash over him. Rachel seemed genuine, a stark contrast to the cold, corporate atmosphere he had feared. As he settled into his new role, he quickly learned the ropes, answering phones, greeting visitors, and managing the flow of paperwork. But beneath the surface of this bustling office, he was on high alert, keenly observing the interactions around him. As the day progressed, Elijah began to notice subtle dynamics that hinted at a deeper issue. Senior managers strode through the lobby with an air of entitlement, barely acknowledging the receptionists or the employees who passed by. He overheard snippets of conversations that made his stomach churn. "Can you believe they actually think their opinions matter?" one manager scoffed to another, rolling his eyes. Elijah's heart sank. This was the culture he had built? He had always believed in open communication and valuing every employee's input. Yet here he was, witnessing the very opposite. During a quiet moment, Rachel leaned over the desk, her voice low. "You'll get used to it, but just so you know, the higher-ups don't really care about us down here. They think we're just cogs in the machine." Elijah's mind raced. "What do you mean?" She glanced around to ensure no one was listening. "I've been here for 5 years, and I've seen it all. They dismiss our concerns, laugh at our struggles. It's like they think we're lucky to even have jobs." Elijah felt a pang of anger. This was not the Innovatech he envisioned. "Have you ever brought this up to HR?" Rachel shook her head. "They just brush it off. It's like talking to a wall. You'll see. Just keep your head down and do your job." As the day wore on, Elijah continued to observe the interactions between employees and management. He witnessed Sarah, a senior manager, berating a junior developer for a minor mistake, her voice dripping with condescension. The developer's face flushed with embarrassment, and Elijah felt a surge of empathy for him. This was not just a workplace. It was a battleground where the strong preyed on the weak. By the end of the day, Elijah was exhausted but determined. He had seen enough to know that the issues ran deep. As he clocked out, he caught Rachel's eye. "Thanks for your help today. I appreciate it." She smiled, but there was a hint of sadness in her eyes. "Just remember, Eric, it's not always what it seems. Keep your eyes open." That night, Elijah returned home, his mind racing with thoughts of what he had witnessed. He sat at his kitchen table, staring at the wall, trying to process the day. The disconnect between the company's values and the reality on the ground was staggering. He had to dig deeper. The next day, he arrived at the office with a renewed sense of purpose. He was determined to uncover the truth about Innovatech's culture and the people who were suffering under its weight. As he settled into his role, he began to engage more with the employees, asking questions and listening to their stories. He learned about Maria, a dedicated accountant who worked late hours to keep the department running smoothly, yet rarely received recognition for her efforts. He met James, an IT specialist who went above and beyond to help his colleagues, but felt invisible in the eyes of management. Each story added another layer to the troubling picture Elijah was beginning to paint. One afternoon, while sorting through paperwork, Elijah overheard a conversation between two senior managers in the break room. They were discussing the latest project launch, but their tone was dismissive, mocking the employees who had worked tirelessly to meet the deadline. "Can you believe they think they deserve a bonus for this? They should be grateful they have jobs." One of them laughed. Elijah's blood boiled. This was the elitist attitude Rachel had warned him about, and it was pervasive. He felt a growing sense of urgency to address these issues, but he knew he had to tread carefully. If he revealed his true identity too soon, he risked losing the trust of the employees who had begun to confide in him. As the days turned into weeks, Elijah continued to gather information, documenting everything he witnessed. He was becoming more entrenched in the role of Eric Collins, but the weight of his dual identity was beginning to take its toll. He felt the pressure of his responsibilities as CEO weighing heavily on him, even as he tried to navigate the complexities of office life as a receptionist. One evening, as he was leaving the office, he spotted Rachel sitting alone in the break room, her head buried in her hands. Concerned, he approached her. "Hey, is everything okay?" She looked up, her eyes red-rimmed. I don't know how much longer I can take this. It feels like we're all just waiting for the next round of layoffs." Elijah's heart ached for her. "You're not alone, Rachel. I'm here to listen if you want to talk." As they spoke, Elijah realized that Rachel was not just a colleague. She was a voice for the many who felt unheard and undervalued. He promised her that he would do everything in his power to help change the culture at Innovatech. That night, as he lay in bed, Elijah reflected on the journey he had embarked upon. He was no longer just a CEO. He was a witness to the struggles of his employees, and he felt a deep sense of responsibility to advocate for them. The path ahead would be challenging, but he was determined to uncover the truth and bring about the change that Innovatech so desperately needed. Little did he know, the challenges he faced were only beginning, and the deeper he dug, the more complicated the situation would become. The third week of Elijah's undercover mission began with an incident that would haunt him for days to come. He was organizing files at the reception desk when he overheard a conversation that made his blood run cold. Sarah Matthews, the senior manager he'd been observing, was speaking to another executive in what she thought was a private moment. "These entry-level employees are getting too entitled," Sarah sneered, her voice dripping with contempt. "Did you see the suggestion box? They want better healthcare coverage and more flexible hours. As if they deserve it." Her companion chuckled. "They should be grateful they even have jobs in this economy. Remember when we started? We worked our way up without all these demands." Elijah's hands trembled as he pretended to sort papers. The casual cruelty in their voices reminded him of aristocrats discussing peasants. Was this the legacy he had created? A modern-day corporate caste system? Later that morning, he witnessed Sarah in action during a team meeting. A young analyst, Jessica, presented an innovative cost-saving proposal. Her ideas were solid, backed by data, and could potentially save the company millions. But Sarah dismissed her without even looking at the full presentation. "That's not how we do things here," Sarah interrupted, waving her hand dismissively. "Stick to your assigned tasks, Jessica. Leave the strategic thinking to those with more experience." Jessica's face fell, but what struck Elijah most was how unsurprised everyone else looked. This was normal. This was accepted. This was the culture he had unknowingly allowed to fester. During lunch break, Rachel pulled him aside in the break room. "Did you see what happened to Jessica?" She whispered. "That's why nobody speaks up anymore. Ideas die here unless they come from the right people." "Has it always been like this?" Elijah asked, trying to keep his voice neutral despite the anger building inside him. Rachel shook her head. "No, it's gotten worse over the past year or so. There used to be more hope. Now it feels like we're just going through the motions." As the day progressed, Elijah noticed more subtle signs of the toxic culture. The way junior employees would physically shrink when certain managers walked by. The forced laughter at inappropriate jokes from superiors. The resigned sighs when overtime was demanded without warning. But what truly opened his eyes was an exchange he witnessed in the parking garage after hours. Maria, the dedicated accountant, was explaining to Sarah why she needed to leave on time the next day. "My son has a school performance," Maria explained. "I haven't missed one since he started school." Sarah's response was cold. "Well, we have a deadline. Family events don't pay the bills, do they? I'm sure your son will understand that mommy has to work." The interaction left Elijah feeling physically ill. He watched Maria walk to her car, shoulders slumped, making a phone call he knew would break her son's heart. That evening, as Eric, he stayed late, supposedly catching up on filing. In reality, he was reviewing internal communications, employee complaints, and management responses. A pattern emerged. Legitimate concerns were consistently downplayed, dismissed, or buried in bureaucracy. He discovered an email thread where Sarah and other senior managers discussed ways to manage expectations of lower-level employees. Their strategies included everything from gaslighting to subtle threats about job security. It was systematic, deliberate, and horrifyingly effective. The next day brought another revelation. During a mandatory training session about company values, Elijah watched as Sarah and her management team presented platitudes about open communication and mutual respect with straight faces. The disconnect between their words and actions was staggering. "We value every voice at Innovatech," Sarah declared to the room. In the back, Elijah noticed several employees exchange knowing glances. During a coffee break, he overheard two junior developers talking in hushed tones. "Remember Alex?" one whispered. "He raised concerns about ethical issues in the new project. Next week, his position was restructured." "That's why I keep my head down now," the other replied. "Can't afford to lose this job." The fear was palpable, and it was crippling innovation, the very thing Innovatech was built upon. Elijah realized that his company had developed an immune system that attacked new ideas and honest feedback like viruses. As he drove home that evening, Elijah's mind was racing. The culture of indifference wasn't just about bad management. It was about power, control, and the systematic destruction of workplace dignity. His trusted leaders had created an environment where fear ruled and merit meant nothing without the right connections. In his apartment, he sat at his desk and began writing in a journal he'd started keeping. He documented everything: the conversations, the patterns, the subtle and not-so-subtle forms of workplace oppression. But more importantly, he began sketching out ideas for change. The company he'd built was sick, infected by a culture of elitism and fear. And like any illness, it wouldn't be cured overnight. But as he wrote late into the night, Elijah made a promise to himself and to every employee who had suffered under this regime. Things would change. What he didn't know yet was that the culture of indifference was just the surface of a much deeper problem, one that would soon threaten everything he had built. As the weeks passed, Elijah continued to immerse himself in the role of Eric Collins, the undercover receptionist. Each day brought new revelations about the toxic culture at Innovatech, but it also introduced him to the unsung heroes who worked tirelessly behind the scenes, often overlooked and undervalued. One afternoon, while sorting through a mountain of paperwork at the reception desk, Elijah noticed Maria, the dedicated accountant, hurrying past with a stack of files. She looked stressed, her brow furrowed in concentration. He called out to her, "Hey, Maria, do you have a moment?" She paused, glancing back at him with a mix of surprise and hesitation. "Sure, Eric. What's up?" Elijah gestured for her to come over. "I've seen you working late a lot. You seem to be juggling a lot of responsibilities. How do you manage it all?" Maria sighed, her shoulders slumping slightly. "Honestly, I don't know. I just try to keep my head down and get the work done. If I don't, who will? But it's exhausting." Elijah could see the weariness in her eyes. "You're doing an incredible job, you know? I've heard nothing but good things about your work." She smiled faintly, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Thanks, but it doesn't really matter. Recognition doesn't pay the bills or help me get ahead. I just want to keep my job and provide for my family." Elijah felt a pang of empathy. "You deserve more than just keeping your job. You should be celebrated for your contributions." Maria shook her head. "That's not how it works here. If you're not in the right social circle, your hard work goes unnoticed." As their conversation continued, Elijah learned more about Maria's life. She was a single mother, working 2 jobs to support her son, who was excelling in school but often felt neglected due to her long hours. The more he listened, the more he realized how much talent and dedication went unrecognized in the company. Later that week, Elijah had a chance encounter with James, the compassionate IT specialist he had heard about. James was known for his willingness to help others, often staying late to troubleshoot issues for his colleagues. One evening, as Elijah was preparing to leave, he saw James at his desk, surrounded by a sea of computer monitors. "Hey, James, you're still here?" Elijah asked, genuinely surprised. James looked up, a tired smile on his face. "Yeah, just trying to fix a few bugs before the deadline. It's been a long day." Elijah approached his desk, intrigued. "I've heard you're the go-to guy for tech issues. How do you manage to keep up with everything?" James shrugged, his expression shifting to one of humility. "I just like helping people. It's frustrating when they can't do their jobs because of tech problems. But honestly, it can be overwhelming. Sometimes I feel like I'm drowning in requests." Elijah nodded, understanding the pressure James was under. "Have you ever thought about bringing your ideas for improvement to management? I mean, you clearly have a lot of insight into how things could work better." James chuckled, but there was a hint of bitterness in his laughter. "I did once. I suggested a new system to streamline our processes. Sarah shot it down without even considering it. Said it was too out of the box for our current structure." Elijah felt a surge of frustration. "That's ridiculous. Your ideas could really benefit the company." James shrugged again, but this time, his eyes held a glimmer of hope. "Thanks, Eric. It's nice to hear that someone appreciates what I do. But I've learned to keep my ideas to myself. It's safer that way." As Elijah continued to interact with Maria, James, and other employees, he began to see a pattern. These individuals were not just hardworking. They were passionate, innovative, and deeply committed to their roles. Yet, they were trapped in a culture that stifled their potential and dismissed their contributions. One afternoon, while chatting with Rachel during a quiet moment at the reception desk, Elijah shared his observations. "I've met some incredible people here, Rachel. Maria and James are just two examples of the talent we have. It's heartbreaking to see them go unnoticed." Rachel nodded, her expression serious. "They're not the only ones. There are so many talented individuals who feel like they're invisible. It's like the company has blinders on when it comes to recognizing true potential." Elijah leaned in, his voice low. "What if we could change that? What if we could create a platform for these employees to share their ideas and be recognized for their hard work?" Rachel's eyes widened with interest. "That could be risky, Eric. If management finds out, it could backfire." "I know," Elijah replied, determination in his voice. "But if we don't do something, this culture will never change. We need to find a way to elevate these voices, to show management the value of their contributions." As the days turned into weeks, Elijah began to formulate a plan. He envisioned a monthly recognition program that would highlight the achievements of employees like Maria and James, giving them a platform to share their ideas and innovations. It would be a way to break through the barriers of elitism and favoritism that had taken root in the company. But he knew he couldn't do it alone. He needed allies, people who believed in the vision of a more inclusive and supportive workplace. He started by confiding in Rachel, who was enthusiastic about the idea. Together, they began to brainstorm ways to present the program to management without raising suspicion. One evening, as they sat in the break room, Elijah shared his thoughts. "What if we framed it as a way to boost morale and improve productivity? We could present it as a pilot program to test its effectiveness." Rachel nodded, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "I love it. If we can show them the potential benefits, they might be more open to the idea." With Rachel's support, Elijah felt emboldened. They began to gather testimonials from employees, highlighting their contributions and the impact they had on the company. They compiled data on employee satisfaction and productivity, demonstrating the correlation between recognition and performance. As they prepared their presentation, Elijah felt a renewed sense of purpose. He was no longer just an undercover receptionist. He was a catalyst for change. He was determined to give a voice to those who had been silenced for too long. But as he delved deeper into the culture of Innovatech, he couldn't shake the feeling that there were darker forces at play. The more he learned about the toxic environment, the more he realized that the issues ran deeper than just management indifference. There were hidden agendas, power struggles, and a web of manipulation that threatened to undermine everything he was trying to achieve. Little did he know that the challenges he faced were only beginning, and the path to change would be fraught with obstacles he had yet to uncover. The day of the presentation had arrived, and Elijah felt a mix of excitement and trepidation as he prepared to meet with the management team. He had spent weeks gathering data, testimonials, and insights from employees, all in the hope of advocating for a recognition program that could transform Innovatech's toxic culture. But as he stood in front of the conference room door, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was about to step into a lion's den. Elijah took a deep breath, straightened his tie, and pushed the door open. The room was filled with the familiar faces of the management team, including Sarah, who sat at the head of the table, her expression unreadable. The atmosphere was tense, and he could sense the skepticism radiating from the executives as he entered. "Thank you all for being here," Elijah began, his voice steady despite the fluttering in his stomach. "I appreciate the opportunity to present an initiative that I believe could significantly improve our workplace culture and employee satisfaction." He glanced around the room, noting the raised eyebrows and crossed arms. Over the past few weeks, I've had the chance to observe the dynamics within our teams, and I've gathered feedback from many employees. What I've found is concerning. As he spoke, he presented the data he had compiled, highlighting the decline in employee satisfaction and the correlation between recognition and productivity. He shared testimonials from Maria, James, and others, emphasizing their dedication and the impact of their contributions on the company's success. By implementing a monthly recognition program, we can create a culture that values every employee's input and fosters innovation. Elijah concluded, his heart racing. This initiative could help us retain talent, boost morale, and ultimately drive our success as a company. A heavy silence fell over the room as the management team absorbed his words. Finally, Sarah broke the silence, her tone sharp. Elijah, while I appreciate your enthusiasm, I must remind you that we have established protocols for employee recognition. We don't need another program cluttering our already busy schedules. Elijah felt a surge of frustration but held his ground. With all due respect, Sarah, the current protocols aren't working. Employees feel undervalued and unheard. This program could address those issues directly. Another executive, Mark, chimed in, his voice dripping with condescension. You're new to this role, Eric. You may not fully understand the complexities of our management structure. We have a system in place for a reason. Elijah's resolve hardened. I understand that change can be uncomfortable, but the status quo is damaging our company. We can't afford to ignore the voices of our employees any longer. They are the backbone of Innovatech, and their well-being directly impacts our bottom line. The room erupted into murmurs, and Elijah could see the tension rising. Sarah's expression darkened, and she leaned forward, her eyes narrowing. You're suggesting that we're failing our employees? That's a serious accusation, and I won't tolerate it. Elijah took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment. I'm not here to accuse anyone. I'm here to advocate for our employees. They deserve a workplace where they feel valued and respected. If we don't address these issues, we risk losing our best talent and damaging our reputation. The management team exchanged glances, and Elijah could sense their defensiveness. They were not used to being challenged, especially not by someone in a position like his. But he refused to back down. He had seen too much, heard too many stories of struggle and resilience, and he couldn't let fear silence him. Let's consider the long-term implications of ignoring these concerns, Elijah pressed on. We have a responsibility to create a culture that fosters innovation and collaboration. If we don't, we'll be left with a disengaged workforce that feels alienated and undervalued. Sarah's expression softened slightly, but her tone remained firm. We'll take your proposal under advisement, Eric, but I want to remind you that change takes time, and we have to be cautious about how we implement new initiatives. Elijah nodded, feeling a mix of relief and frustration. I understand that, but I urge you to consider the urgency of this situation. Our employees are suffering, and we have a chance to make a real difference. As the meeting concluded, Elijah left the conference room with a sense of determination. He had stood up for what he believed in, but he knew the road ahead would be challenging. The management team's initial resistance was just the beginning. He would need to rally support from his colleagues and continue advocating for change, even in the face of pushback. In the days that followed, Elijah reached out to Rachel, Maria, and James, sharing the outcome of the meeting. They were supportive, but he could see the doubt in their eyes. What if they don't take it seriously? Maria asked, her voice tinged with concern. They have to, Elijah replied, his conviction unwavering. We can't let them dismiss our voices. We need to keep pushing for change, even if it feels daunting. Rachel nodded, her determination rekindled. We can organize a meeting with other employees, gather more testimonials, and show them that this isn't just a few disgruntled voices. It's a collective call for change. Elijah felt a surge of hope. Together, they could amplify their message and demonstrate the need for a cultural shift at Innovatech. He began to strategize, planning a series of informal gatherings where employees could share their experiences and ideas. But as he delved deeper into the culture of Innovatech, he couldn't shake the feeling that there were darker forces at play. The more he learned about the toxic environment, the more he realized that the issues ran deeper than just management indifference. There were hidden agendas, power struggles, and a web of manipulation that threatened to undermine everything he was trying to achieve. Little did he know that the challenges he faced were only beginning, and the path to change would be fraught with obstacles he had yet to uncover. The days following Elijah's confrontation with the management team were tense. While he had managed to voice his concerns, the atmosphere at Innovatech felt heavier than ever. Employees were wary, and whispers of discontent echoed through the hallways. It was clear that the management team was not ready to embrace the changes Elijah had proposed, and he sensed that the resistance was more than just a reluctance to change. It was a defense of something much deeper. One afternoon, as Elijah was sorting through emails at the reception desk, he received a message that caught his attention. It was from an anonymous sender, simply titled, "Important Information." Intrigued, he opened the email, which contained a series of unsettling claims about a former employee named Alex, who had been let go under mysterious circumstances. The email detailed how Alex had been spreading rumors and misinformation among the staff, creating divisions and sowing distrust. It suggested that he was using personal secrets and grievances to manipulate employees, turning them against one another and against management. The email concluded with a warning. If you want to understand the chaos at Innovatech, look into Alex. He's not gone. He's still here, lurking in the shadows. Elijah's heart raced as he read the email. Could this be the missing piece of the puzzle? He had sensed a palpable tension among employees, but he had attributed it to the toxic culture. Now, it seemed there was an external force at play, actively sabotaging the company from within. Determined to get to the bottom of this, Elijah reached out to Noah Reed, a private investigator he had met through a mutual contact. Noah was known for his discretion and expertise in corporate investigations, and Elijah felt he could trust him to help uncover the truth. They arranged to meet at a quiet cafe near the office. As Elijah entered, he spotted Noah sitting at a corner table, his demeanor calm and professional. After exchanging pleasantries, Elijah wasted no time getting to the point. "I received an anonymous tip about a former employee, Alex," Elijah said, leaning in closer. "It seems he's been manipulating staff and creating chaos within the company. I need your help to investigate this." Noah raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "What kind of chaos are we talking about?" Elijah explained the details from the email, recounting the rumors and the divisions that had emerged among employees. "I believe this is part of a larger issue. If we can find out what Alex is doing, we might be able to address the underlying problems at Innovatech." Noah nodded thoughtfully. "I'll look into it, but I need to know more about the company culture and the dynamics at play. Can you give me a rundown of what you've observed?" Elijah spent the next hour detailing his experiences, from the dismissive attitudes of management to the struggles of employees like Maria and James. He painted a picture of a company in turmoil, where fear and mistrust reigned supreme. "All right," Noah said, finishing his coffee. "I'll start by gathering information on Alex and see if I can track down any leads. But I have to warn you, Elijah, this could get messy. If Alex is indeed manipulating things from the shadows, he might not take kindly to being investigated." Elijah nodded, understanding the risks involved. "I'm prepared for that. We need to uncover the truth, no matter how uncomfortable it may be." Over the next few days, Noah worked discreetly, interviewing employees and gathering information about Alex. Meanwhile, Elijah continued to engage with his colleagues, encouraging them to share their experiences and concerns. He organized informal meetings where employees could voice their frustrations and brainstorm solutions, all while keeping the focus on creating a supportive environment. Then, one evening, Noah called Elijah with urgent news. "I've found something," he said, his voice serious. "Alex has been using social media to spread rumors about management and the company's direction. He's been playing on employees' fears and frustrations, exacerbating the divisions within the teams." Elijah felt a chill run down his spine. What kind of rumors? Claims that management is planning massive layoffs, that they don't care about employee welfare, and that the company is on the verge of collapse. He's been feeding this narrative to create chaos and distrust. Elijah's mind raced. That explains the tension I've been sensing. But why? What's his endgame? Noah paused before answering. It seems Alex has a personal vendetta against Innovatech. He was let go under questionable circumstances, and it appears he's trying to undermine the company as revenge. But it's not just him. This is symptomatic of deeper issues within the organization. What do you mean? Elijah asked, intrigued. From what I've gathered, there's a culture of fear and mistrust that has been festering for years. Employees feel undervalued and unheard, and Alex is exploiting that discontent. If we don't address the root causes, this sabotage will continue, regardless of whether Alex is involved or not. Elijah felt a wave of realization wash over him. The toxic culture he had witnessed was not just a byproduct of poor management. It was a breeding ground for manipulation and sabotage. The issues ran deeper than he had imagined, and addressing them would require more than just a recognition program. "We need to confront this head-on," Elijah said, determination flooding his voice. "We can't let Alex's actions define our company. We need to create a culture where employees feel safe, valued, and heard." Noah agreed. "I can help you gather evidence against Alex, but you'll also need to address the systemic issues. This is a chance to not only expose the sabotage, but to initiate real change within Innovatech." As they discussed their next steps, Elijah felt a renewed sense of purpose. He was no longer just an undercover receptionist. He was a leader ready to fight for his employees and the future of Innovatech. Together with Noah, he would expose the truth and work to rebuild the company's culture from the ground up. But as they prepared to confront the challenges ahead, Elijah couldn't shake the feeling that the battle was just beginning. The deeper he dug, the more complicated the situation became, and he knew that the road to change would be fraught with obstacles he had yet to uncover. The atmosphere at Innovatech was electric with tension as Elijah and Noah prepared to address the chaos that had been brewing beneath the surface. Armed with evidence of Alex's manipulations and a renewed commitment to fostering a healthier workplace culture, they knew they had to act decisively. Elijah called for an all-hands meeting, a rare occurrence that sent ripples of curiosity and apprehension through the office. Employees gathered in the large conference room, their faces a mix of hope and skepticism. As he stood at the front, Elijah felt the weight of their expectations pressing down on him. "Thank you all for coming," he began, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "I know that the past few weeks have been challenging. There have been rumors, fears, and a sense of uncertainty that has affected us all. Today, I want to address those issues head-on." He paused, scanning the room. "We've uncovered some troubling information regarding a former employee, Alex, who has been spreading misinformation and creating divisions among us. His actions have exploited the very real frustrations many of you have felt about our workplace culture." A murmur rippled through the crowd, and Elijah could see the tension in their shoulders begin to ease slightly. "But this isn't just about Alex. It's about us. It's about the culture we've allowed to develop here at Innovatech. A culture that has, at times, been dismissive and unwelcoming." Elijah took a deep breath, feeling the gravity of his words. I want to acknowledge the hard work and dedication of those who have been the backbone of this company. Employees like Maria and James, who have gone above and beyond, often without recognition. It's time we change that. He gestured to Maria and James, who were seated in the front row. Maria, your commitment to your work and your team has not gone unnoticed. You've kept our accounting department running smoothly, often at great personal sacrifice. And James, your willingness to help your colleagues with tech issues has made a significant difference in our daily operations. Thank you both for your incredible contributions. The room erupted into applause, and Elijah could see the surprise and gratitude on their faces. It was a small but significant step toward rebuilding trust and acknowledging the unsung heroes of Innovatech. Moving forward, we will be implementing a recognition program that highlights the achievements of employees across all departments. Elijah continued, his voice gaining strength. This program will not only celebrate individual contributions, but also foster a culture of collaboration and support. We want every voice to be heard and every effort to be recognized. As he spoke, Elijah felt a wave of hope wash over him. This was the beginning of a cultural shift, a chance to create an environment where employees felt valued and empowered. But he knew that words alone wouldn't be enough. They needed to take action. After the meeting, Elijah and Noah met to discuss their next steps. We need to address the systemic issues that have allowed this toxic culture to thrive, Noah said, his expression serious. It's not just about recognizing individuals. It's about changing the way management interacts with employees. Elijah nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation. We need to create channels for open communication where employees can voice their concerns without fear of retribution. We should also provide training for management on how to foster a supportive environment. Over the next few weeks, they worked tirelessly to implement these changes. They established regular feedback sessions where employees could share their thoughts and ideas directly with management. They organized workshops focused on leadership development, emphasizing the importance of empathy and active listening. As the changes began to take root, Elijah noticed a shift in the office atmosphere. Employees were more engaged, more willing to share their ideas and concerns. The recognition program was met with enthusiasm, and soon, stories of hard work and dedication began to circulate throughout the company. One afternoon, during a casual gathering in the break room, Elijah overheard a group of employees discussing the new initiatives. I can't believe how different things feel now, one of them said. It's like we're finally being heard. I know. I feel like I can actually share my ideas without worrying about being shot down, another replied. Elijah smiled to himself, feeling a sense of pride in what they had accomplished. But he also knew that the journey was far from over. The scars of the past would take time to heal, and there would be challenges ahead. One day, as he was leaving the office, Elijah spotted Maria sitting at her desk, her expression contemplative. He approached her, curious. Hey, Maria. Everything okay? She looked up, a small smile breaking through her thoughtful demeanor. Yeah, I was just reflecting on how much has changed in such a short time. It feels good to be recognized for my work, but I also feel hopeful about the future. Elijah nodded, grateful for her perspective. That's exactly what we're aiming for. A culture where everyone feels valued and empowered to contribute. As they spoke, Elijah realized that the changes they were implementing were not just about policies or programs. They were about people. They were about creating a workplace where individuals could thrive, where their contributions were celebrated, and where they felt a sense of belonging. But as the weeks turned into months, Elijah remained vigilant. He knew that the remnants of the toxic culture still lingered, and there were those who would resist the changes. He had to ensure that the momentum they had built would not falter. One afternoon, as he was reviewing feedback from the new initiatives, he received an unexpected email from Sarah. It was a request for a meeting to discuss the recent changes and their impact on the company. Elijah felt a mix of apprehension and determination. This could be a pivotal moment. He knew that Sarah had been a significant player in the old culture, and her willingness to engage in this conversation could signal a shift in leadership. As he prepared for the meeting, Elijah reminded himself of the journey they had undertaken. He was no longer just a CEO. He was a leader committed to fostering a culture of trust, respect, and collaboration. He was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, armed with the knowledge that change was possible. Little did he know that the meeting with Sarah would reveal even deeper layers of the issues at Innovatech, and the path to true transformation would require more than just recognition and open communication. The sun was setting over the Innovatech headquarters, casting a warm golden glow through the glass walls of Elijah's office. As he sat at his desk, he reflected on the whirlwind of events that had transpired over the past few months. The journey from the depths of a toxic culture to the beginnings of a supportive and inclusive workplace had been nothing short of transformative, not just for the company, but for him personally. Elijah leaned back in his chair, allowing himself a moment of introspection. His undercover experience as Eric Collins had opened his eyes to the realities faced by his employees. He had witnessed their struggles, their frustrations, and their resilience. He had learned that leadership was not just about making decisions from a high office. It was about listening, understanding, and advocating for those who felt voiceless. The meeting with Sarah had been a turning point. She had expressed her concerns about the changes and the potential backlash from some members of the management team. But rather than resisting, she had shown a willingness to adapt, acknowledging the need for a cultural shift. Together, they had discussed ways to integrate the new recognition program into the existing framework, ensuring that it aligned with the company's goals while fostering a more inclusive environment. As he prepared for the upcoming company-wide meeting to unveil his new vision for Innovatech, Elijah felt a sense of purpose wash over him. He had spent countless hours drafting a comprehensive plan that emphasized fairness, support, and the value of every employee. It was time to share this vision with the entire company. On the day of the meeting, the conference room was filled with employees eager to hear what Elijah had to say. The atmosphere was charged with anticipation, and he could sense the hope in the air. As he stepped up to the podium, he took a moment to look around the room, meeting the eyes of familiar faces: Maria, James, Rachel, and many others who had supported him throughout this journey. "Thank you all for being here today," Elijah began, his voice steady and confident. "Today marks a new era for Innovatech. We've faced challenges, but we've also discovered incredible strength within our team. Together, we've begun to transform our culture into one that values every voice and every contribution." He paused, allowing his words to resonate. "I want to acknowledge the hard work and dedication of each of you. You are the heart of this company, and it's time we recognize that. Our new recognition program is just the beginning. We are committed to creating an environment where everyone feels valued, supported, and empowered to share their ideas." Elijah outlined his vision for Innovatech, emphasizing the importance of open communication, collaboration, and inclusivity. He spoke about the need for ongoing training for management to foster empathy and understanding, ensuring that leaders were equipped to support their teams effectively. "We will implement regular feedback sessions, where every employee can voice their concerns and suggestions without fear of retribution," he continued. "We will celebrate our successes together, recognizing not just individual achievements but the collective efforts that drive our innovation." As he spoke, Elijah could see the spark of hope igniting in the eyes of his colleagues. They were ready for change, ready to embrace a culture that valued their contributions and respected their voices. "Change won't happen overnight," Elijah acknowledged. "But I promise you this. I am committed to leading this company with integrity and transparency. Together, we will build a workplace where everyone feels they belong, where every idea is heard, and where we can all thrive." The room erupted into applause, and Elijah felt a swell of emotion. This was not just a speech. It was a promise, a commitment to his employees and to the future of Innovatech. As the meeting concluded, Elijah was approached by Maria and James, their faces beaming with pride. "Thank you for believing in us," Maria said, her voice filled with gratitude. "It feels like we finally have a voice." James nodded in agreement. "I can't wait to see how this unfolds. It's like a weight has been lifted." Elijah smiled, feeling a sense of fulfillment. "This is just the beginning. We're in this together, and I'm excited to see what we can achieve as a team." In the weeks that followed, the changes began to take root. Employees were more engaged, sharing their ideas and collaborating across departments. The recognition program was met with enthusiasm, and stories of hard work and dedication began to circulate throughout the company. The atmosphere shifted from one of fear and mistrust to one of hope and possibility. Elijah continued to meet with employees, listening to their feedback and making adjustments as needed. He was determined to ensure that the cultural shift was not just a temporary change but a lasting transformation. One afternoon, as he walked through the office, he overheard a group of employees discussing a new project. Their excitement was palpable, and Elijah felt a sense of pride swell within him. This was the Innovatech he had always envisioned. A place where innovation thrived, where employees felt valued, and where collaboration was the norm. As he returned to his office, Elijah reflected on the journey that had brought him to this moment. He had learned that true leadership was about more than just making decisions. It was about building relationships, fostering trust, and advocating for those who needed it most. Looking out at the city skyline, Elijah felt a renewed sense of purpose. Innovatech was on the path to becoming a company that not only valued innovation but also valued its people. He was committed to nurturing this culture, ensuring that every employee felt seen, heard, and appreciated. With a heart full of hope and determination, Elijah knew that the future of Innovatech was bright. Together, they would continue to build a workplace where everyone could thrive, where every voice mattered, and where the spirit of innovation would flourish for years to come. And as he prepared for the challenges ahead, he felt ready. Ready to lead with empathy, ready to embrace change, and ready to champion the incredible team that made Innovatech what it was.
Don't forget to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel so we can keep bringing you the best stories.